fire. Fire has always carried deep meaning, not just physically in life and throughout history, but symbolically and figuratively in art and depiction. Passion, madness, warmth, light, safety, destruction, even danger. For all the meaning and sentiments it invokes, something about the flame tends to ignite an ancient essence, like staring into the primordial ooze and witnessing the becoming of man. Akin to these notions is a group of characters which represent a darker side of fire's grace, draped in the sewn-together skins of man and wielding the ancient magic of their archaic past, are the Godskins and the Black Flame sorceries.
Oh, death. Become my blade once more.
Before I continue further, I'd like to thank a viewer for the great suggestion which inspired this content. In a past video, I briefly mentioned Ghost Flame and described its use by the Deathbirds in the burning of death before the existence of the Erdtree. The correlation between Ghost Flame and Black Flame is complicated to definitively ascertain, as either of them act to represent similar yet different notions in both life and death. Worthy of our initial inspection is a descriptor which is found on many pieces of the Godskin noble armor. Nobles are the most ancient apostle who are said to have assimilated in human physiology, not unlike the crucible, the Erdtree, in its primordial form. As an opinion, and based partially on this text, I think it's possible that Black Flame precedes Ghost Flame. Just as likely though, it's possible that they've existed simultaneously to serve different purposes for separate outer gods and separate themes. There's also possibility that these two flames are one and the same along a lineage, acting as implementations of an archaic source of power. Finally, there's also the chance that there's a spider on my wall. Hold on. Jesus. There's also the chance that there is no connection between these entities, and the two merely coincide via life, death, and the respective uses within the lands between and the world which it resides. From reading the description of the Godskin Apostle armor, we learn that the apostles were said to have once served Destined Death as wielders of the god-slaying Black Flame. But after their defeat by Malekith, the Black Blade, the source of their power was sealed away. Destined Death serves a succinct purpose in Elden Ring, separate from what Ghost Flame acted to impart. While Black Flame once served Destined Death by bringing about the ultimate outcome, Ghost Flame's contribution comes to the already dead, which is asserted by the fact that Deathbirds are described as graveyard firekeepers, indicating their dealing with the non-living. To further supplement the point of separation between these two ideologies, we can inspect the Twin Bird Kite Shield to read that the Twin Bird is said to be the envoy of an outer god, the mother of the Deathbirds. This description implies that an outer god, one which is not referenced to Destined Death, is responsible for Ghost Flame. Because we don't know for certain what is responsible for Destined Death, and because there is such seldom detail of its origins, we can hesitantly assume that it may simply represent the common fate which dictates the final undoing of all living things in the world of Elden Ring. Given that Marika sought to contain Destined Death using Malekith, it's very likely that she was also aware of the god-slaying nature of Black Flame, and meant to snuff out that fire in order to maintain the lifespan of herself and her family. Concurrent to this, it's very possible that Ghost Flame became replaced by the outer god which created the Erdtree as the recycling of life took on a new form. But how did this come to be? We know that Malekith ironically stole Destined Death, but from who? Possibly the most mysterious character in Elden Ring, and the product of ongoing speculation, once acted as mother to the children of the Black Flame and the harbinger of death to the gods, the Gloam-Eyed Queen. From the Godskin Greatsword, we learn that the Gloam-Eyed Queen controlled the Godskin Apostles before her defeat at the hands of Malekith, and from the Godskin Swaddling Cloth Talisman, we learn that the Gloam-Eyed Queen cradled newborn apostles swaddled in this cloth, who soon grew to become the death of the gods. Considering the relation of Destined Death to Black Flame, these items indicate that the Gloam-Eyed Queen essentially controlled Destined Death, along with the Godskin nobles, until it was taken from her by Malekith. This would have likely happened relative to the beginning of Marika's reign during the Age of the Erdtree, preceding the Shattering. We can decide on this timeline based on the series of events which led to the Shattering, as it wasn't until Ranni stole Destined Death from Malekith that the Elden Ring was eventually broken. It isn't certain how the Gloam-Eyed Queen came to behold Destined Death, nor is the fate or identity of this person entirely known. According to online sources, she was possibly an Empyrean, and given the ancient nature of the Godskins, it's possible that she either controlled Destined Death for a long time, or was gifted the power by her own two fingers. However, and worthy of note, is that the latter potential would indicate that Destined Death is the responsibility of the greater will, as are the two fingers, who would have bequeathed that power. I would contend this, seeing as Destined Death had to be stolen by the constituents of the Golden Order in the first place. It would be questionable as to why the greater will would create such an unnecessary conflict over something within their control. That is, unless an Empyrean with a rebellious nature chose to defy rather than concede. Many have surmised that Melina is the Gloam-Eyed Queen, and it's hard not to see the relation, especially considering the scene which we see her in during the Frenzied Flame ending. Apart from this though, I find it interesting to consider Ranni within this context. The common theory is that Melina and Ranni are one and the same, which is an interesting notion to ponder. We don't know Ranni as we know Melina, or as any other character. Not quite spirit or living, and her prerogatives along with her history are shrouded in question. We know Ranni as a literal doll, which is the result of casting aside her physical form after stealing the Rune of Death. But do we know why or how she did this? She claims she wouldn't accord the will of the two fingers prescribed to her, but for what reason? If we're to believe the Elden Ring wiki, which claims that the Gloam-Eyed Queen was an Empyrean, then we have to assume that the Gloam-Eyed Queen is one of three: Miquella, Melina, or Ranni. This leads us to a very peculiar point, which may conflict with my previous beliefs. Because Ranni's spirit doesn't exist as those born of the Erdtree, could it be possible that Ranni chose to invoke Deathrite in sacrificing herself by Ghost Flame? Would this explain her affinity for cold sorcery? Is it possible that this sacrilegious act resulted in her spirit fracturing from her physical form, which we come to know as Melina? Could this be why we see Melina as she is at the end of the Frenzied Flame ending, essentially living in death? I personally don't know what to believe, but I love to hypothesize. My personal system of belief dictates that the truth is always more simple and more boring than expected, so I don't expect to be right or correct when asking leading questions. My points are made just to inspire and incite thought. So what do you think? Do you believe the Gloam-Eyed Queen is an Empyrean? Do you believe it's Melina? Do you think Melina and Ranni are the same? Leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments. I love to read them. Also, just as an end note, I wanted to acknowledge the channel for a moment. I'll try not to do this often, but I sincerely wanted to extend some gratitude towards viewers. I realize I missed some important characters in my previous video, and I know the audio needs improvement. But to receive the amount of support I have in spite of these things is an endearing feeling, to say the least, and your feedback and compliments are inspirational. I hope to only improve with time. And with that, thank you for watching and for participating.